For the last half century, one huge global industry has pretty much been a two-horse race. I'm talking about commercial aviation, of course. But what if I told you a new giant is taking to the skies? Today, we're going to dive in and see if it really has what it takes to break that duopoly.
Yep, you know the names. If you've ever flown on a major airline, chances are you were on a Boeing or an Airbus. For decades, these two have defined everything about the market, from the engineering all the way down to the economics. And honestly, it's a question the entire industry has been whispering about for years. I mean, think about it. Building a modern jetliner, it's one of the most ridiculously complex things humans can do. But after decades of hard work, a new contender has finally rolled out onto the tarmac.
And this is it. Meet the COMAC C919. It's a narrow-body jet, designed and built in China, and it has one incredibly audacious goal: to go head-to-head with the best-selling planes on the planet from Boeing and Airbus.
Okay, so how serious of a challenger are we talking about here? Let's get right into the numbers and see exactly how this plane stacks up against the competition. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Take a look at these specs. The C-19 is aimed squarely at the sweet spot of the market. The capacity, the range, it's right there with the workhorses of global aviation, the A320neo and the 737 MAX. But check this out. The most telling detail of all? The engine. It's from the exact same family, the LEAP engine, as its biggest rivals. Wow.
And we're not just talking about a prototype sitting in a hangar. No way. COMAC has already racked up over 1,000 orders for the C-19. Now, the key thing to understand is that pretty much all of these orders are from Chinese airlines. This practically guarantees its success right out of the gate, at least within China's absolutely massive domestic market.
But the story of how this plane was actually built, well, that's just as fascinating as why it was built. Because even though it says made in China on the fuselage, if you peel back the layers, you'll find it's more like a complex global jigsaw puzzle. This table really lays it all out. We're talking about the C919's global DNA here. Look at this. The most critical systems, the stuff that actually makes it fly, come from some of the biggest names in Western aerospace. It's a huge paradox, right? To build a national champion to challenge the West, China is, for now, completely dependent on Western tech. It's a partnership born out of pure necessity. And this quote from GE, it just says it all, doesn't it? The very heart of the C919, its engine, is a direct sibling to the engines on the A320 and 737. It's just a stark reminder of how deeply connected this supposed challenger is to the exact same global supply chain it's trying to disrupt. So, let's recap. COMAC has managed to build a modern jetliner with a lot of help from global partners. That's a huge achievement, but that's only half the battle. Now comes the biggest hurdle of all for its international dreams, getting through the absolute maze of regulatory approval. See, before any plane can be sold and flown around the world, it needs this critical thing called an airworthiness certificate. This comes from major regulators like the FAA in the US or EASA in Europe. And let me tell you, this is a grueling, years-long process where they scrutinize every single nut and bolt to make sure it's safe. Without that stamp of approval, the C919 is stuck, flying only within China. And believe me, the road to even get to this point has been anything but smooth. Just look at this timeline. It shows you just how brutally difficult aircraft development is. You've got these huge months-long delays between test flights. You've got planes being grounded for major modifications. Deliveries happening years behind schedule. Every single point on this timeline just screams immense technical challenge. So, what about the future? Well, this quote from the head of Europe's top aviation safety agency really puts the challenge into perspective. They're basically saying, even though the process has started, it'll probably be another 3 to 6 years before the C919 might get the green light for European skies. That, right there, is the certification gauntlet in action. But here's the thing. While COMAC is busy navigating that regulatory labyrinth, China isn't just sitting around and waiting. The C919 is actually part of a much bigger national strategy to build a greener, more sustainable aviation industry, literally from the ground up. And this strategy isn't just about the planes themselves. On the ground, China is pouring massive amounts of money into making its airports greener. You're seeing these huge solar panel installations, just like this one, popping up at terminals all across the country. It's becoming a totally common sight.
It's all part of this really comprehensive national plan. We're talking about electrifying the vehicles that service the planes, powering entire airports with renewable energy, and even fine-tuning air traffic control to reduce fuel burn. The big goal here is to create a whole sustainable ecosystem, one that they hope makes a plane like the C999 an even more attractive option down the road.
So, this is where we land. China has proven it can build a competitive, modern jet, it's locked down its huge domestic market, and it's weaving this plane into a really forward-thinking green aviation strategy. But the ultimate question, the one that defines its global ambition, is still hanging in the air. After finally getting through that long, hard road of certification, can it convince the world's airlines and, just as importantly, you and me, the passengers, to actually fly in it?